Presented is a model of a hypothetical universe where the Planck scale is considered as valid. In this model, therefore, the universe is granular, with no references available prior to the beginning to measure space and time. A single infinity existed by default. Time is unitized in measurable moments, the smallest of which is 1 unit of Planck time. This is the time it takes to travel at the speed of light, the distance of 1 unit of Planck length. 1 unit of Planck length is the smallest size a single quantum of length can be in quantum theory. This length is a result of the equations written by Maxwell Planck using 3 constants of nature. In that at this time, science only holds as a provable fact 3 dimensions for space and 1 dimension for time. This model allows for those dimensions only. The first moment of existence was 1 unit of Planck time old, the moment it crossed the threshold from infinite nothingness and became a finite something that had a beginning and was measurable as space. The first unit of space is a cube that is 1 unit of Planck length for each dimension of height, width, and depth. In this model, at this first moment of time, space can be defined as where infinity is not, and infinity can be defined as where space is not. Any geometric shape other than the cube is not as efficient in fulfilling the minimum dimensions of a 3-dimensional shape of given equal sides. This cube can in no way be cut into smaller pieces in this Planck-based granular model. If it were to be divided by a single cut, the resulting pieces would no longer be cubes. In 3-dimensional space, it would take 3 cuts to make 8 smaller cubes from 1 larger cube. Multiple sequential actions in a single cube cannot exist in 1 unit of time. This model proposes that the 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time are constraints put upon the energy that entered into existence out of the infinity, forming that energy into a cube-shaped field that has location and size and moves along a timeline in indivisible units of time that can be counted. Since this is a Planck-based model, within this cube the energy field can have no less than an energy value of 1 quantum unit of energy per unit of Planck time. Any amount of energy below 1 unit will, by default, be 0. There can be no fractions of 1 quantum unit. The maximum energy value of this cube can be expressed as temperature. The temperature of this cube-shaped energy field is 1.41679 times 10 to the 32nd power as measured in degrees Kelvin during this first unit of Planck time. This is the maximum temperature allowed by Planck's equations. Whatever energy value the cube has within its field exists unchanged for 1 unit of time. In this model, the energy field that is in this first singularity cube is in the unified field of the 4 forces into the gravitational field. The other forces have not separated from the gravitational field yet to become individual forces. Since the Planck length of this cube is the smallest it can be, and the gravitational field is the strongest that it could possibly be, and still allow for this cube to exist as space, it stands to reason that if the gravitational field were to revert back to an energy value of infinity from the energy value of the maximum Planck temperature, this cube would re-enter the infinite nothingness from which it sprang forth, only having an existence for 1 unit of Planck time. It could then be referred to as a virtual Planck cube. In this model, time can go backwards to 0, causing the singular cube to be moving along the timeline axis forward in time from 0 units of time to 0 plus 1 unit of time. Then at 0 plus 2 units of time, it reverses its direction along the axis of time. It then goes backwards from 0 plus 1 unit of time to 0 units of time and back into the infinity it originated from. This implies that in the dimension of time, 0 and infinity can be one and the same. The timeline chosen for this model begins with 0 and ends with infinity, and contains only whole positive integers that begin with 0 plus 1 unit of time and ends with infinity minus 1 unit of time in between the 0 and the infinity. A timeline with negative values would require a negative infinity and a positive infinity. Any number of infinities greater than 1 would render these infinities as countable and therefore finite. A timeline with negative numbers would be circular as the numeric count of both positive and negative integers increase from 0 toward the single infinity, going in opposite directions. Since time can move both directions, forward and backwards, no negative integers exist on this timeline in this model. This would imply that the dimension of time is also circular. If one goes from 0 cubes to 1 cube with a finite number of energy units that total to the value of the maximum Planck temperature, and by adding a countable number of cubes continuously as you divide that energy into each new cube, it would no longer be a cube. It would approach a spherical shape comprised of a finite number of cubes that have energy values that will, with a finite number of units of Planck time, approach 1 Planck quantum unit of energy per Planck length cube. Gravity, locked into a cube shape at such a high energy level, would like to exert its force on the cube to form it into a sphere, but the laws of quantum mechanics won't allow this to happen. The cube stays in existence as a cube due to the minimum size being governed by the Planck length constraint. This energy force shape as a cube is in near perfect order. A gas, if put inside a cube, would distribute itself inside that cube with time in a process called entropy. The higher the entropy, the more randomly distributed the gas is. Since time began as a finite number of quantum bits of information known as energy encased into a cube shape by a force known as the 3 dimensions of space, those bits of information entered into existence in a single unit of Planck time in a state of the minimum entropy that it can possess and stay in existence. If the entropy level went to 0, the cube would return to infinity. The energy value of the field of the cube cannot vary until it moves along the timeline 1 unit of time, either forward if entropy produces more cubes to divide the units of energy into, or backwards with a reduction of entropy and an increase in the energy value from the maximum Planck temperature to infinity. If the energy level of the field increases to infinity for what should be the second unit of time for this cube, then the cube would disappear because that cube went back to 0 units of time instead. If the singularity cube appears in infinity and not inside of an existing universe, the level of energy in its field would decrease as more cubes are added, and the cube would remain in existence for a second unit of Planck time. An infinite number of singularities can exist. The original cube of space and time came to exist out of infinity and became something measurable upon inception and can be referred to as a Planck length cube singularity, 1 unit of Planck time old, in a state of the minimum entropy that it can be in with the maximum energy value that it can possess and still be in existence for that unit of Planck time. If the gravitational force were any stronger, it would squash this cube out of existence. It might be looked at as though it is the cubic nature of the three dimensions on the energy field that define the boundaries of this Planck cube out of the force of the gravitational field suspended in the middle of the infinite nothingness. Matter is not present in this first cube, only a measurable quantity of energy. Multiple cubes could not have been created in the first unit of time, as this would not be the most efficient possibility for the force of the cubic nature of three-dimensional space in opposition with the spherical nature of infinity and gravity in the first unit of time. The infinite nothingness that this cube sprang forth from still exists outside of this finite cube, and has a possibility of in some ways existing within this cube as well, interpenetrating it, so to speak, during this first moment of existence. However, this model considers that there is an exclusionary principle involved. Finite and infinite cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Therefore, there is zero infinity inside of this cube. Gravity is a force that pulls on each surface on all 6 sides of this cube. Entropy trapped inside acts as a force that resists against gravity pulling in on this cube, which remains a cube due to the Planck length constraint. These two forces oppose each other with equal force in this first unit of Planck time. The term the age of the universe is only valid for this singularity cube, as all future cubes do not exist at this time. This age is the total number of sequential units of Planck time that have passed as counted from the present for this singularity cube only. This is a very real finite number of units of time that can be counted in indivisible positive numbers. The hand that reached into infinity and lifted this Planck length cube of energy into existence and held onto it for 1 unit of Planck time many units of time ago brought two opposing secondary forces into existence. In this model, it is the nature of the sphere to be zero and or infinity. It is the nature of the cube to be all positive whole integers, beginning with 0 plus 1 and ending with infinity minus 1. In this model, infinity minus 1 will be the number of Planck length cubes, where each cube in the universe has an energy value of a single indivisible quantum unit of energy for a final unit of Planck time. Time is what is keeping entropy in check and regulating its built-in effect on all future cubes which enter into existence. A real non-virtual singularity cube will go forward in time from the first unit of time away from zero onto a second unit of time. Entropy will then have no choice but to take infinity minus 1 unit of time to distribute the primal energy of the first cube, and time will begin its march forward for this cube. A countable number of cubes will cover the previous universe with a new layer of cubes with each additional unit of time that passes forward on the timeline. It's an effort to reach out and create a more perfect sphere from these cubes toward the edge of and within infinity. The size of this universe grows toward a more spherical shape within the infinity it was born in. The average energy value number in each future cube will decrease as that number approaches 1 quantum unit for each cube. The increasing level of entropy in this universe will approach infinity. It can only attain it when there is no longer a need to produce more and more cubes with each additional unit of time that passes. Entropy is the mainspring of the clock. Time is the pendulum of the clock. The hands of the clock are busy at work producing more and more Planck length cubes with the passing of each unit of Planck time until the end of time. This model agrees with the concept of a single infinite nothingness being the background in which a singularity of spacetime is suspended. Within this cube exists an energy field that is measured in energy value per unit of time. For this model, it will be inferred that each cube will have a numeric energy value, a quantization of energy that can be assigned to it for 1 unit of time for the energy field at that time in that space. It is considered as a fundamental law that the force of gravity is diminished according to the law of the inverse square, such that doubling the distance between objects with mass reduces the gravitational attraction by a factor of 4. This factor will approach infinity as the gravitational attraction approaches 0. The most energy efficient geometric shape formed by the gravitational force is a sphere. The singularity cube's efficiency goal is in direct opposition to gravity's spherical efficiency goal during this first moment in time. This will affect the second moment in time, wherein the original energy value for the single cube is recorded in the past as the same unknown hand that produced the original cube produces secondary cubes, each with its own energy value, and again, each new cube is 1 unit of Planck time old the moment it appears, but it is 1 unit of time younger than the original singularity cube that still occupies the same location in space. The newly created cubes must have 0 distance between the new cubes and the old cube, as well as between themselves, for their respective energy fields to be able to share energy. The second moment of time is such that each of the 6 sides of the original cube have new cubes attached, as well as the corners and edges, resulting in a larger cube that is now 3 Planck length cubes per dimension of space for a total of 27 cubes. This forms a larger cube that completely covers the singularity cube like a cubical onion. The singularity cube's 6 sides are shielded from infinity for infinity. The new cube would resemble a Rubik's cube. However, due to gravity's efficiency goal, the second moment universe has an additional cube attached in a third layer in the center of each new side, resulting in a more spherical shape than the simple cube. The problem presented with this model is that now there is a measurable distance of 5 Planck lengths per dimension of space and only 2 units of Planck time, thus possibly violating certain laws of physics pertaining to the maximum speed being the speed of light. The speed of light is 1 Planck length per each unit of Planck time. This model attempts to offer an explanation for the cause of the acceleration of the expansion of the universe. The creation of layers of new cubes is quite different than energy-carrying particles traveling through previously existing cubes at the speed of light. To form a sphere from the singularity cube, 2 cubes are stacked outward toward infinity in this unit of Planck time for each axis. In this model, new cubes will be manifesting out of infinity just as the first cube was formed as space to capture energy in the form of gravity. The force of entropy will propel this universe forward along the timeline as it attempts to increase its own force with each new unit of time by dispersing the primordial energy from the first cube. It is now up to gravity to form the most spherical shape from the new cubes that it possibly can through the regulator known as time. A battle, it seems, is being waged between the force of the cube versus the force of the sphere, since they are at direct odds with each other in efficiency goals. The combatants must obey the rules of the game, and sequential equal units of time and space prevent any cheating. Entropy is the driving force for time in this model. Since choosing the maximum Planck temperature as the measurement of the force of the energy field in the original cube, then, as the new cubes that come into existence in future moments are farther from the first cube and follow the law of the inverse square for the force of gravity, each adjacent future cube directly attached to the first cube are twice the distance. The gravitational field energy value would be 1/4 of the value of the original cube's new value during the second unit of time. The energy value of the cubes that exist in the third layer from the singularity cube will be 1/9 that of the energy value of the original cube's new value. The shape of the universe in the second moment of time is the next most energy efficient shape that satisfies the influence of gravity in forming a sphere from multiple cubes. It is more spherical than a simple cube. 33 cubes of Planck length exist in the second moment of time in this model of the universe. The age of the singularity cube is now 2 units of time old, and all of the new cubes are only 1 unit of time old the instant they manifest. In this model, the sum total of energy values in the fields for all 33 individual cubes total to the energy value of the maximum Planck temperature that was present in the singularity cube. Although this model allows for the dividing of the energy value in the singularity cube from 1 unit of time to the next, sharing this energy with new cubes as they are added, it does not allow for Planck length cubical units of space or single units of Planck time to be divided. New Planck length cubes are being created during the interval of 0 time between units of time. In each cube is a quantity of energy in the gravitational field that is, through the force of entropy, being dispersed into new cubes in an effort to turn the singularity cube into a sphere. The change in numeric energy value of the original cube from the first moment to the second moment brings into existence information that can be plotted graphically, since there are now 2 points that can be compared in the energy field of that singularity cube. For each cube, the change of energy value for multiple sequential units of time will give information that can be plotted as the life of this cube plays out. The number of cubes that exist in the second tick universe will also provide information that can be graphically represented. The location of this singularity cube becomes a center of reference for the 3-dimensional lines of space. It will always be the center of this universe for both space and time. It is the timeline that moves forward 1 unit of Planck time. This allows the cube to have a separate lower energy value than the first unit of time, as more cubes are brought into existence that are attached to this cube to share the energy with. To measure the change in the energy values between the first and the second incarnation of this cube, you receive information as to the amount of the change, whether it is higher, lower, or no change at all. Since entropy and energy value are inversely related, the overall entropy of the universe is higher in the second tick as entropy attempts to reduce the energy value of the singularity cube to 0. The third tick of this clock, called the universe, is again fueled by entropy. The desire of the force of gravity is to form a sphere from the singularity cube that invaded the timeless peace of infinity with its noisy and offensive notions of existence. The sharp edges of these cubes slice painfully into the bowels of the infinite void. Gravity would love nothing more than to squash this cube back into infinity where it was before. However, since this is no longer an option at this time, the next best thing is for gravity to round the edges and knock the corners off with the gravity coerces entropy into adding new Planck length cubes of space and affixing them to the second moment universe. The result of this is that in the third unit of time, the universe is more spherical than the second moment universe was. Gravity has a finite number of units of Planck time to accomplish this goal. The finite quantity of energy present in the singularity cube is divided into cube-shaped packets of energy with each additional unit of time by entropy in an effort to form a sphere from these cubes. There will come a point in time where each Planck-length cube in the universe possesses the minimum energy allowed per cube, a single quanta. If any more cubes were available, there would be no available energy units to fill them. Adding another encapsulating layer of cubes to the second moment universe for the third unit of time results in a universe that is comprised of 201 cubes. Of these, 33 existed in the second tick and just have new energy values. They also retain their locations in space as referenced by the singularity cube. Therefore, 168 new cubes entered into existence between time unit 2 and time unit 3. The new cubes being added to the exterior of the universe are stretching the gravitational waves as they are sharing the force from the original singularity cube in the middle of the universe. Whenever two or more cubes are added along a column of cubes in 1 unit of Planck time, the gravitational waves that are being shared are being stretched faster than the speed of light. This is causing a Doppler shift upon these gravitational waves, which in the future will cause galaxies to move apart from each other faster than the speed of light. The stretching of these gravitational waves will become more pronounced as the diameter of this universe expands and accelerates into infinity. In this model, this is the cause of the phenomenon commonly referred to as dark energy. The shape of the universe for the third unit of time is such that another layer of cubes encapsulates the second tick universe, making a 5 by 5 by 5 shell, but with the 8 corners not present. On each side of this layer is an additional layer of cubes arranged in a 3 by 3 matrix that is centered on each side. A cube is centered outward toward each edge in this same layer. On each of this universe's 6 sides, in a fourth layer, sits a single cube centered along each dimensional axis. All three-dimensional columns laid out by the singularity cube extend toward the same single infinity. This third tick universe is comprised of 201 cubes of energy. They each share the energy that was present in the first cube during the first unit of time. This results in a universe that is 9 units of Planck length as measured along each of the 3 axes of space. The cubes that exist in the universe at this time have 3 different birthdays. The oldest cube now has 3 plots on its life graph, allowing for the measurement of a continuation of direction or reversal of direction or no change. This is a higher degree of information than was available with only 2 points plotted. The singularity cube had no reference for relative location or size while suspended in isolation in the middle of infinity. A universe comprised of multiple cubes can assign relative location points along the 3-directional axis of space as relative to the first cube. All time and all space are measured from this singularity cube. With each sequential unit of time, entropy causes the production of enough new cubes to completely encapsulate the universe from the previous unit of Planck time. This universe will never be a perfect sphere. The Planck length edge of each cube will always be straight, never curved. As is evident in this third incarnation of the universe, the volume of space is accelerating at an accelerating rate in relation to the amount of time that is elapsing. This exponential growth will continue as the size of the universe grows toward a more spherical shape comprised of a specific real number of Planck length cubes counted from any given point on the timeline. This count at a given point in time will include any virtual Planck length cubes that will not be present for the next sequential count and were not present in the previous count. A total of all the virtual Planck length cubes that have ever existed from any unit of time since the beginning of time can be counted in real numbers. The total real, non-virtual cubes can be counted for any unit of time on the timeline. The total of all real cubes that have ever been created can be counted. The location of each virtual or real Planck length cube can be plotted graphically on the dimensional axis of height, depth, and width as laid out by the singularity cube. As the universe grows with time and occupies more of the infinity it is suspended in, the probability of a virtual Planck length cube appearing inside this universe for 1 unit of Planck time increases. A column of cubes of this universe where this virtual Planck cube appears will be forced to move outward 1 Planck length for 1 unit of Planck time, while this virtual Planck length cube exists inside of this universe, only to shift back for the passing of the next unit of time where the virtual Planck length cube no longer exists. The virtual cube's energy value was pushed back to infinity from the energy value of the maximum Planck temperature. The distortions caused by these virtual Planck cubes are resisted by gravity's goal of the perfect sphere. These virtual singularity cubes may appear just like the singularity cube that became this universe appeared anywhere and any time in the infinite void that surrounds this universe. They would remain undetected no matter how large they might grow. Only when these singularity cubes infringe upon the territorial imperative of this universe suspended in the infinite void does this universe find fault. These interlopers result in an unevenness that will echo through all future generations of this universe. Each virtual cube has an energy value equal to the energy value of this universe. In this model, virtual Planck cubes are appearing and existing for 1 unit of time, forcing the relocation of pre-existing cubes. In the early universe, this relocation of units of space resulted in the variation of the cosmic microwave background radiation that will appear in future generations. As entropy cools the universe, this radiation will become visible. This is also why there will be an uneven distribution of matter in this universe, resulting in galaxies and other congealing phenomenon with vast voids between them. Without the influence of these virtual Planck cubes, the energy value of the cubes that comprise the universe at any point in time would all have the energy values that would reflect their distance from the singularity cube according to the law of the inverse square without any fluctuations amongst themselves. Each layer outward toward infinity would be totally even as entropy strives to distribute the energy from the original singularity cube. The virtual Planck cubes have put ripples in the energy field of the cubes. These ripples pass through with each new unit of time. It is the energy value that is affected by these ripples. These ripples expand outward spherically at the speed of light as they move through the cubes of the universe from the wave's point of origin in the universe with each tick of the clock. The force of these ripples diminishes according to the law of the inverse square. These expanding ripples will intersect other ripples from other virtual cubes that happen to be within reach as time moves forward. This results in different energy values for the individual cubes involved. The column that moves is the shortest one to the edge of the universe. Any cube in the universe could be displaced by a virtual Planck cube except the singularity cube. It alone can never be moved. Since one virtual Planck cube has an energy value of the maximum Planck temperature, its appearance inside of this universe would double the energy value of this universe for that unit of time. Two virtual Planck cubes would triple this universe's energy value for that unit of time. The larger the universe becomes, the more virtual cubes per unit of time should be present for each additional unit of time. In this model, when a Planck-length cube appears in the middle of infinity, the energy that is lost as it goes from a value of infinity to the energy value of the maximum Planck temperature is absorbed by the infinity it arose from. When a virtual Planck cube appears inside of this universe, the energy going from a value of infinity to an energy value of the maximum Planck temperature is absorbed by this universe for that unit of Planck time. In the following unit of time, that energy is transferred back to the virtual cube to push it back into infinity. There is no overall permanent net change in the energy value of this universe. However, the additional absorbed gravity that is present in the universe during the unit of Planck time that the virtual cube exists has a very real effect upon this universe during its visit. In this model, the additional gravitational force from all of the virtual cubes in existence inside of this universe at any one time results in what is called dark matter. This added gravitational force from these virtual Planck cubes will increase the gravitational force on the matter of this universe, causing it to appear as if there is more matter in this universe than there really is. Counting the specific Planck length cubes created with each unit of Planck time passing reveals information. This information can be plotted on a two-dimensional graph. By starting with 0, the blank sheet, move to a point on this sheet and mark it with a single dot. Label it 1. This point represents the Planck length singularity cube at the beginning of time. Move to the second point on the graph and plot the total number of cubes that comprise the universe for the second unit of time, 33, plus the created cube from the previous unit of time. This places the second point on the graph at 34. This means that 32 new cubes came into existence for the beginning of the second tick. For the third point, the same process will be used, taking the total number of cubes existing in the third unit of time, 201, and adding the number of created cubes from the previous unit of time, 32, results in a total of 233 cubes. Each of these points lie upon the spiraling arm of the Fibonacci sequence. This spiraling numeric sequence is found throughout the universe and is generated using the addition of the previous number to the present number, starting with 0. This upward spiraling number of cubes forming this pattern chosen by the hand of creation in the very first moments is the source of this influential geometric pattern found throughout all of creation. Each tick of the clock produces a finite number of new Planck-length cubes layered over the previous universe, giving a total count for that tick. When added to the previous unit of times created cubes, the total of both is a number that will follow the Fibonacci sequence which, like the cubes of the universe, starts with 0 and spirals toward infinity. This count is of the cubes of this universe and excludes any virtual Planck-length cubes that happen to be inside of this universe at any moment in time. The sphere can never fully win because a perfect sphere cannot be made from something with edges and corners. The path the sphere follows through time to get from 0 to infinity is a circle. A circle is just the thinnest slice of a sphere that is possible. The cube can never fully win, but it can resist being molded into a sphere with all its might as the count of its numbers spiral upward along the Fibonacci sequence toward infinity. This spiral is in direct opposition to the circle. This singularity cube marches along a spiraling path to get from 0 to the end of time. At this very last countable unit of Planck time, each cube of the universe has a single indivisible quanta of energy that was present in the singularity from the beginning of time. Once the singularity cube's energy value reaches 1, it can then only go to 0 if the total finite number of cubes in the universe goes to infinity. Entropy, which propels time, has been tirelessly working toward this last moment since the first moment. Entropy desires to reach infinity, so with cruel satisfaction, entropy swings the pendulum once more, causing the universe to move forward in time and back into the infinity it sprang forth from with one more tick. A tick that is equal to the time the hand of the Creator reached out from the other side of infinity and held onto the very first cube.